Yes, good evening. My name is Wallace Gator Bradley, and I'm the president of United in Peace, Inc. I'm also the host of the Bradley Report. First off, I want to let it be known that this show is put together by none other than the chairman of United in Peace, Inc. That's Miss Terry Marsh. I'm blessed that she helped me to put this project together. And I want to send a prayer out on behalf of our family for my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, and pray that God continue to bless them, keep them in His spirits, and may they have a lot of good health and wealth. Just want to say, boo, I feel you, and I love you. With that being said, I'm going to say to God be the glory. We got a very important show. There's a lot of things that has been happening this week. Okay. We know that the former special prosecutor came out and said that the reason that he didn't indict President Trump was because by constitutional law, you cannot indict a sitting president. So we through with that. We're going to let Congress work that out. I feel they're going to end up impeaching Trump. But let's get to the matter at hand, because they say local politics is what's important. So let's get into it, to the meat of it. It was just brought to my attention that Boykin is eyeing the bid to unseat Kim Foxx. And he's saying that he wants to run against Kim Foxx because he feels like she hasn't been supportive of shooting victims, and his concern that she's not working with law enforcement. And I myself, Boykin said that it says former Cook County Board President, Commissioner Richard Boykin is considering a run to unseat State's Attorney Kim Foxx, saying she's failed in terms of being an advocate for victims of gun violence. I don't know where Boykin been. He must just crawl from up under a rock, because she's been a proponent for victims of violent crime. Okay? He ain't checked the state's attorney's record to see the prosecution of individuals who have been involved in senseless shootings and killings. But hey, that's just my opinion. Boykin got a right to run, like I got a right to support Kim Foxx. But it feels like Boykin has become a part of this new movement to eradicate criminal justice reform within Cook County, along with the Fraternal Order Police. Okay, we're going to get into that in a minute. They came down and protested against Kim Foxx because they feel like she's freeing too many people because of Chicago police misconduct. Okay, inclusive of framing individuals, possible police brutality, possibly police murders that we're hearing about. But one thing for sure, police misconduct. 80 plus people. Some people in the community say she's freed more African Americans than Abraham Lincoln. And I say to that, Abraham Lincoln wasn't a state's attorney. So Can nobody win that argument? But Boykin has a right to run, and then he says, Boykin said that's the sentiment he's heard from community members and others like businessman Willie Wilson as he contemplates his bid. Frankly, Miss Boykin, frankly, I don't think she works well with law enforcement to go after the people committing these crimes. Well, it's not the state's attorney's job to arrest the individual that commit the crime. That's the police department's job. And while I'm talking about it, I want to move on to something that's very important when it comes to the last thing. That's what I think Boykin may be alluding to, is the defendant's release on bond. Okay, how everyone has been trying to say that the reason a lot of this is happening is because of the thing that was in the paper about the defendants being released on bond. And a lot of people was trying to say that the individuals that were released on bond, some for non-violent cases, that they were the ones that was coming back in the streets and committing the crime. And a lot of that came from the statement that Mayor Lori Lightfoot made as she was standing at a press conference, I believe, with Superintendent Eddie Johnson. And it made it where Tim Evans had to come and say and explain that with the statistics, that those that were getting out on bond, about 90% of them, plus 90% of them, weren't individuals that have been released because they have been arrested for a weapon and had got out and got another weapon and went and shot or murdered an individual. So it was like the mayor and the superintendent was pushing the weight or blaming Toni Prattwinkle because she is the face of criminal justice reform. So now here we got Boykin. He's mad at Toni Prattwinkle because Toni Prattwinkle beat him when he attempted to run for county board president. But that's all right. He got a right to run. But I'm just saying, where was Boykin when Dick Devine and Mayor Daley and Anita Alvarez and them were a part of a mechanism that was covering up police misconduct? Where's Boykin when he see where the FOP is standing in full support of feeling that the police officer that killed Laquan McDonald is a good police officer? That feels that police officers that lied to cover it up shouldn't be fired. Nobody in Fraternal Order Police organization has came out and even said that those officers were bad apples. Nobody from the Fraternal Order Police has came out and said those officers officers that have been found guilty and end up in a federal penitentiary for framing African Americans that has been released because of those police officers' actions are bad apples. Carl, I see you. Could you state your name?
Yeah, James.
Hey, James.
Okay, okay. The reason why this fight keep on happening, you got Eddie Johnson and them. They got all these cameras. Okay, you know the media, right?
Right.
Now the media is doing some of this shooting. Some of these politicians, some like Governor Fisker and Tammy Dirtwin, or some of these people are doing some of these shooting, some of these leaders, because and then it's not gangbangers, it's not the criminal, it's some of these leaders, like some of them doing some of the shooting, and some people in the media doing something. Why they come into play all the time?
You know, James, you're entitled to your opinion, but I don't think that the politicians are out there shooting individuals. You know what I mean? Okay, like, I respect your opinion, because this is an opinionated show, okay? But I'm not going to go into that because I don't want to take the fact of the matter that for individuals, starting with that bogus Smollett piece, to be willing to work with the Fraternal Order Police and racist organizations to get rid of an African American woman that has brought integrity to the state's attorney's office by engaging in fair prosecutions and getting rid of cases where police officers have lied on the stand, has framed individuals, has tortured individuals, and she just got the right, because of a judge's decision, chief judge's decision, to be able to prosecute the John Birch cases that would no longer be up under a special prosecutor office that's bleeding the taxpayers of Cook County of millions of dollars. So they wanted to go back where police officers can get away with murder, brutality, police torture. That's what's happening for real. That's factual. Even to the point where COPA, chief of staff, said that it's time to wipe out the cops' waiting period. Okay? We all know that the Fraternal Order Police know that their contract has to be renewed that makes sense for the citizens of Chicago as well as for the police. I'm not against police officers, but I'm definitely not with police officers that feel like they can break the law, frame individuals, torture individuals, murder individuals, lie about the cover-up. So, COPA's chief of staff have made the decision she wants to eliminate the corporate chief of staff, or she's the head of the Civilian Office of Police Accountability. She said this Friday. She wants to eliminate the waiting period written into the police contract that critics contend makes it easy for officers to lie by giving them 24 hours before providing a statement after a shooting. Okay? She feels that, and that's what's really happening. They have a waiting period before a period written into the police contract that critics contend makes it easy for officers to lie by giving them 24 hours before providing a statement after a shooting. And you know what's so wild about that? In the Laquan McDonald case, even though there was a tape that proved that Van Dyke had murdered Laquan McDonald, shot him 18 times, 16 times. I'm thinking about 18 times because April 1st of this year, when the Fraternal Order Police was down in front of the state's attorney's office with a protest, they had some white supremacists or white nationalists come and join in that protest, and one of the guys said that the young man should have been shot 18 times. When a young brother by the name of Jamal Green asked the question, "What did you say?" The man asked him to repeat the question, and when he did, the man said Laquan McDonald should have been shot 19 times. 20 times. Okay? The Fraternal Police didn't say anything. Their silence showed the world that they was in sync of what the white nationalists felt. When you see when Fraternal Order Police write a letter and make it public that they want to get rid of Kim Foxx because she is freeing individuals because of police misconduct, we as the people in Cook County got to look at the seriousness of this movement that's about eradicating criminal justice reform within Cook County, to go back to a period where police can get away with murder, the cover-up of murder, police torture. Because they doing it to not just to black and Hispanic people. When you got a police department and a state's attorney that's covering up for crime that's happening with them, and then those assistant state's attorneys become judges, you got a corrupt society. So when I see Boykin talking about he considering running, so he considering to be that black face, so they can put a black face up there to hide their hand. We went through that with the Supreme Court with Clarence Thomas. Let's move on. Now all of a sudden, you got the national FOP president. He wants Lori Lightfoot to apologize. He wants Lori Lightfoot to apologize. He wants Lori Lightfoot to apologize because of the statement that she made to the Patrick Murphy, who's the president of the Chicago Fraternal Order Police. I believe he's the vice president or... Anyway, she made a statement that was heard during a city council meeting that was broadcast live, where she called Patrick Murphy a clown. Okay? I think she said something to the tone of this clown. He's the second vice president. The national president, Chuck Canterbury, jumped into the controversy triggered by Lightfoot's offhanded remark. First by tweeting the demand for a mayoral apology, then by accusing Lightfoot of immature behavior that has left Chicago police officers feeling unappreciated by their new boss. Let me get this through my head and for my viewing audience to understand what it is I'm saying. What I'm reading, this is his statement. It's not my statement. This is not a rumor. This is his statement. Chuck Canterbury jumped into the controversy triggered by Lightfoot's offhanded remark, first by tweeting the demand for a mayoral apology, then by accusing Lightfoot of immature behavior that has left Chicago police officers feeling unappreciated by their new boss. She's not off to a very good start. She has not demonstrated a level of professionalism that she's demanding from her employees. She basically needs to reboot somehow, Canterbury told the Sun-Times in a telephone interview. They're professionals. They understand that she's the mayor, but they also believe that she needs to listen more and talk less. She needs to listen more and talk less. Murphy is the same Fraternal Order Police Vice President that feels that it is wrong for the Chicago Police Board to fire them for lying and the cover-up of the murder of Laquan McDonald. That's their professionalism, to be about the cover-up of misconduct and murder of Chicago police and a Chicago police officer. The mayor may have been wrong by calling him a clown, but what else do you call it for an individual to justify what the police officers did? She apologized for saying she said it out loud. But this is what they want her to apologize to, but they have yet to apologize for the actions of the Chicago police officers that engage in police torture, that engage in police murders, that engage in cover-up of these crimes, framing individuals. The Fraternal Order Police have not apologized for the few bad apples in the police department that have committed these crimes. But the most frightening thing is, Mr. Canterbury, Trump is about to appoint him over ATF. If he don't believe, or if he believed by his actions, from what I'm reading, and he hasn't asked the Chicago police that engage in misconduct, murders, and cover-ups to apologize to the Chicago Police Department and the citizens of Chicago because of their actions. He's the wrong man to be over the alcohol, tobacco, and firearm. But he's saying, from what I'm reading, he gonna condone illegal activity by the few bad apples within ATF. All I'm doing is bringing the news back to you as I read it, because sometimes people don't have time to read the newspaper, don't know what is happening. That's why I started off with the thing about Boykin. Everybody wants an apology from the mayor now. But nobody stand up and ask the police department, the fraternal order police, to give us an apology. So Mayor Lightfoot, stand firm, because you're the mayor. And you know what's right and what's wrong when it comes to the Chicago Police Department, because you was over the police board. You was over the police task force. And you know that the reason that we got this piece where you are now responsible for being the watchdog of Chicago, to make sure that the police department get right so the citizens can feel protected by them instead of being terrorized by them. Stand firm. The mandate is with you. And on that, I want to say, to God be the glory. Peace.